Luisangel Acuña is tearing the cover off the ball in the Winter League. What is the best case scenario for his future? We're going to break it all down on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. They'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Luisangel Acuña is currently playing in the Venezuelan Winter League. In his first 19 games of winter ball, he's hitting .375 with a .455 on base, a .500 slug. He's got a cool .955 OPS. He's hit a home run, has a couple doubles and a triple, 9 RBIs, 15 runs scored, and he's stolen 12 bases on as many attempts. So he is just having himself a great time in the Venezuelan Winter Leagues. What do we make of this? Because this comes off of the heels of what he did at the end of the season with the New York Mets, where in 14 games with the big league club, Acuña hit .308 with a .325 on base, .641 slug, had 3 home runs, 6 runs scored, 6 RBIs, and played really solid defense at shortstop when Francisco Lindor was dealing with that back injury. So over the last, 33 games of sample size, Acuña's been pretty darn good. But there was 131 games in Syracuse this year where Luisangel Acuña's status as a top prospect was taking a real hit. Was he still one of the top prospects in the Mets organization? Absolutely. Was he one of the top 100 prospects in baseball anymore? No, he was falling off in that regard. In 131 games played at AAA this past season, Luisangel Acuña hit .258, had a .299 on base, and a .355 slug. Put that together, it's a .654 OPS. There was 81 qualified hitters in the International League. I've mentioned this stat in the show before. 81 hitters that played enough games to be qualified for, league-leading stats like batting average, on base, all that stuff, OPS. When you look at those qualified hitters that played a large sample size of games in the International League, Acuña's OPS was 78th out of 81 batters. It's really poor. He did not have a good season. Now, if you go back to when the Mets traded for Acuña, here's a guy that was hitting .315 in AA with the Rangers, .377 on base, .453 slug, 42 stolen bases on 47 attempts. All of a sudden was becoming a near consensus top 100 prospect, had 25 doubles in 84 games before getting traded. Goes to the Mets, finishes the year in Binghamton, in 37 games, had a .622 OPS. So we were looking at the point in time for when he got traded until he got promoted. And that was 14 months of Acuña hitting to a well below 700 OPS. That variance is concerning when you look at his future as what you would hope to be a starting player. Can he hit? That's the question. I got no concerns about him in the field. Whether he's at shortstop, center field, second base, he is a natural. He's a gifted baseball player. He's going to figure that stuff out. And he's also a really good base stealer. He's got a ton of speed. So that's his biggest asset offensively. But to be able to really tap into it, you got to get on base. Which guy is he? Do we read into these numbers in the Venezuelan Winter League? Unfortunately, I can't. And the reason why I can't is because Winter League baseball, pretty much across the board, you're talking about essentially like minor league level competition. It's not big league competition. And also, he's not playing in Lidom. And Lidom is the Dominican Winter League. That's where the best talent is during this time of year. Now, when Ronnie Mauricio was doing what he did, you could read into that a little bit more because the competition was a little bit better. At best, the league that Acuna is playing in right now is maybe AA competition and maybe not even high-end AA competition. It's good that he's dominating, but he should be out there putting up big numbers. If he wasn't, I'd be very concerned. He's not doing anything that changes my opinion of him. As great as those numbers are to see, it's not moving me off of my previous opinion on Luisangel Acuña, which is that ultimately he might not have the same ceiling that fans are dreaming of. Could he be a very good baseball player, though? Could Luisangel Acuña be a huge part of the New York Mets for the next 6 years? Yes. And I'll tell you what, I am coming around more and more on Acuña because of the defense and because of what he can be when he gets hot. I think this is a hitter that's going to be very streaky, where there's going to be times like that week without Lindor, where Luisangel Acuña all of a sudden looks like that all-star that we're all dreaming that he would one day become. But I think there's a far more realistic comp for Acuña's ceiling in the big leagues. And I don't know if he's even going to get to this ceiling, because the guy that I'm going to tell you about in the next segment just signed a pretty nice contract because he is a very good starting player in the big leagues. And he's not an all-star, but he can help you win. I think that's the ceiling for Acuña. I think the floor is going to just be a really great bench player, and that's not a bad thing to have. But can Acuña hit that ceiling? I want to give you a comp that I think is really perfect to describe Acuña in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. So make sure that first $5 bet is a slam dunk, something you know you're going to win, so you get those bonus bets. That's all at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports, and you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you all for helping us get to our most recent goal, which was 11,000 subscribers. Next one up is 12,000. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, so here's the comp. I think Luisangel Acuña's ceiling is Tommy Edman. Now, you might just jump back and say, Tommy Edman, that's it? He's an Acuña. His brother's an MVP. Why can't Luisangel Acuña be an all-star at second base? Is Edman really all that he can be? But I would ask you to put some respect on Tommy Edman's name, because this guy's a really good player. And also, let's not forget, Tommy Edman is one of the biggest reasons why the Mets didn't go to the World Series, because he was unbelievable in that NLCS, hit over 400, won the NLCS MVP. And that's why I think this comp really fits, because I think there's going to be times where Acuña can do that, where Acuña can hit 400 in a 6-game series and win an NLCS MVP. That might happen. That might be in his future. But in between, there's going to be struggles. He's a guy that can be pitched to like Tommy Edman. For his career, Tommy Edman's a .263 hitter. If Luisangel Acuña is a .263 hitter, I'm okay with that. I am. Because he's giving you so much defensively. For Edman's career, it's .263 batting average, .317 on base, .408 slug. So that's an OPS of 726. You look at his OPS plus, that's a stat that measures hitters on a league average of 100. He's got 100 OPS plus. So he has been a league average hitter throughout his career. There's some years was a little bit better. There's some years was a little bit worse. It's the same thing with WRC plus, a very similar stat measuring hitters on a league average of 100. Tommy Edman is not going to be the guy that's going to post the 130 WRC plus, which would mean he is at more of an all-star level. He's not going to hit the 25 home runs, drive in 80, steal 60 bags. but he's going to steal 35 plus bases. He might score 95 runs for you in a good season. He might drive in 55, and he might hit 11 to 15 home runs. His actually career high is 13. But I think if you're looking at Acuña, I would say maybe 15 home runs is the most you get on a great season. But he's going to potentially hit 30 doubles when he's right, maybe even 40 doubles when he's right. He's going to have some good years, some bad years. There might be a year where Acuña is unbelievable for the first couple months and does make an all-star team. But I would expect that in a year like that, he'll probably taper off a little bit in the second half. I just don't know if Acuña is going to be able to put it together and be an above-average offensive player for an entire big league season, but that's okay. Because as long as you get the great defense, you're going to have a very valuable player that can be a starter for you. If you look at FanGraphs wins above replacement for Tommy Edman in his career, he's now played 633 games. He has a F-WAR for his career of 16. Divide 633 games by 4, you get a little over 158 games. So what does that tell me? He's missed some time at points, but Tommy Edman, who has played about 4 full big league seasons worth of games in his career, has, if you average that out, he's been about a 4-win player over a full season of sample size because of the defense. He has a 5-win season under his belt when he was a little bit better than you might have expected. And that was the season over at Just Baseball where we ranked him as a top 10 shortstop in the game against my will. I was not a fan of Tommy Edman being in our top 10. And I remember he just squeaked in there. That was coming off of, was it 2022? Yeah, 2022, where Tommy Edman hit 265, 324 on base, 400 slug, had a 106 WRC plus, had a 5-win season because he was so good with the glove, stole 32 bases. And look at his career. He actually has never stolen 35, but I think Acuña can steal 35 plus bases. Tommy Edman's been more 30 stolen bases when he's right, but he's also been extremely efficient. I think the difference with Acuña, you'll probably get more stolen bases, but not as good of a rate. He's going to get caught more than Tommy Edman does, but I think he'll be a little more aggressive on the base pass. They're not, complete carbon copies of each other, but I think when it comes to function on a roster, that's what you're hoping for with Luisangel Acuña, a guy that can be your backup shortstop because you have Francisco Lindor. So if Lindor, knock on every piece of wood you can find, ever has an injury where he misses a little bit of time in a season, you can slide Acuña from second to short and you won't take that big of a step back defensively if you take a step back at all. Because we saw he was able to play that shortstop position at a high level, filling in for Lindor in games that really matter, which was very impressive. You play him at second base, he's probably going to be an elite defender there, just like Tommy Edman is whenever he actually plays second base. And Tommy Edman, you stick him in center, he's a really good center fielder. I think Acuña can be that as well. So that's really, I think, a very good comp for a best possible outcome for Luisangel Acuña. If he has a Tommy Edman career for the Mets over the next 6 years, he is going to be such a good piece on this team. He really is. That's the type of player that you want on your ball club, that you can win with. And how do we know this? Well, for one, we just saw it, but also because Tommy Edman just got a $74 million deal with the Dodgers to stick around. They liked him that much. They know, as a team that has some real concerns in center field and at shortstop, that this is a guy that solves those problems. A much better version of who they've had with Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor is not as good of a defender, even when he was in his prime, as what Tommy Edman is. So they're getting a better version of that, where they know wherever they stick him, they're going to get premium defense. And when he's right, he might actually be able to hit 290 if everything breaks right for Tommy Edman in a season. But more likely, you expect that batting average to drop a little bit, the on base to be around 320. That's what you are banking on. You're banking on a very high floor player. And that's what I think Acuña is. He's got a high floor because of all the tools he brings to the table. But don't put that expectation on Acuña that he's going to be a multi-time all-star, because you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. At least I think so. I hope he proves me wrong. Maybe he does have a higher ceiling than I'm forecasting. Going into next season, though, I don't think Acuña is just guaranteed to be the starting second baseman. I think he's got to fight for every single at bat, as he should early on in his career. But I would hope he makes the team because I think he's going to bring a lot of versatility to the table. And he's going to be a really good piece to have on your bench, if nothing else. And why would he be on your bench? Because Jeff McNeil would be hitting and holding down second base. And because you'd be getting something out of Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor in center field. But do I think that Acuña can steal that center field job? Absolutely. I think it's possible for sure. Could he take Jeff McNeil's job at second base? Potentially. Maybe the Mets, depending on the roster construction, maybe they need Jeff McNeil in right field a little bit. And they're going with a very defensive-minded team with McNeil in right, Acuña at second, and Siri in center or Taylor in center. I think Acuña is the type of player that makes a team, and then all of a sudden you just find him getting written to the lineup more and more than you'd expect because he's a winning baseball player. The more I think about Acuña's future with the Mets, the more optimistic I am. Not that he is going to hit 315 like he did with the Rangers in Double-A a couple years ago. Not that he's going to hit 375 like he did in the Winter League or hit over 300 like he did with the Mets in 14 games. I don't think he's going to be a 300 hitter. I really don't. But I think this is a guy that can win Gold Gloves, especially if he actually lands on a single position, whether that be second base or center field. Obviously, if he's moving around a bunch, less of a chance that he's going to get that Gold Glove. Unless it's a utility Gold Glove, certainly could get that as well. But I think that's the side of it that has me really encouraged is the defense, the fact that he's going to bring speed to the table. So that is a nice tangible skill to have, to be able to have that 40 stolen base prowess and an ability to score a lot of runs with his legs. He's just got to be a league average hitter. And if he does that, he's going to be a very good baseball player. So we have to kind of set proper expectations for Acuña. But I think if you do, you're still looking at a guy that over the next 6 years should be a really big piece of some good teams for the New York Mets. Now, how good those teams are going to be might depend on a big free agent that we're all waiting on. So I'll give you your daily Juan Soto update to close out the show. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure to become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service to get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. So if Juan Soto signs with the Mets, that's where I'll be going first, and then I'll be hopping on a podcast really quickly after it. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So what's the latest on Juan Soto? We're seeing a lot of people guessing on social media. All of a sudden today, there was a 16-year, $665 million deal? Someone just shooting in the dark that was going to be the contract. It's done. We had multiple people saying Mets have signed Juan Soto, and none of those people were credible. A guy that knows a little something about Juan Soto, Scott Boras. Today, where was he? He was at Blake Snell's introductory press conference with the Dodgers. And a lot of the questions, of course, were about Snell, but a few reporters snuck in some questions on Soto. And the big sort of news, if you can call it that, is that Juan Soto is eliminating teams. That's all I really got. And it was part of a bigger answer. He was talking about the process and how Juan Soto was digesting a lot of information. He was mulling over things. He's gotten presentations that are really thorough from all these teams, and he's trying to make the best decision for himself and his future. And part of it was he's at the point of eliminating teams. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean the Yankees have been eliminated? I doubt it. If the Rays actually put some type of presentation in front of Juan Soto, which we don't know, if they're one of the mystery teams, maybe he's eliminated them because their offer was 10 years and high AAV, or who knows. But maybe that's eliminating a team. Maybe the Phillies have been eliminated. Maybe the Blue Jays have been eliminated. Maybe, they put a big offer in front of him and that's driving the price. But in his mind, he knows there's no chance he wants to go sign to play in Toronto. That very well could be the case, right? All of the reporters that are actually credible are still leaning Mets. But that doesn't make me feel good or confident or completely sure he's going to be a Met. because we don't know what Juan Soto wants deep down. We don't know which team presented the case to him that's compelling enough that he's in on it. And we don't know if the Mets are going to aggressively overbid enough to make those other things not matter. Are the Mets going to put a contract out there that's just so absurdly good that Juan Soto picks them? Or are the Mets going to present a pitch, or have they presented a pitch, I should say, it's already happened, that is convincing enough that Juan Soto is going to sign, and yes, for a ridiculous contract? I think that's how you want to land him. I don't think you want to land him by putting $750 million in front of him and just saying, hey, we have the most money, so we're going to get him. Now, do the Mets owe it to this pursuit to put the best offer in front of Juan Soto? Yes. But I don't think they should just completely outbid the market to such a significant degree that they land him because they overspent. I think they should put the biggest offer out there that does drive the price to whatever that finish line is, but it's a price the Mets are comfortable with. And if the Red Sox or the Yankees match that offer and Juan Soto likes that team more, well, ultimately, okay. You don't want to get into a marriage for a guy for a decade and a half where the only singular reason why he's signed with you is strictly money. You want to make sure that he is really excited to be a New York Met. And yes, he can be excited about $701 million over 15 or 16 years. But one of these other teams could have put an offer in front of him that's close to that too. And he might decide to play with the New York Mets. So it's still in that point where speculation is just that. It's speculation. And that's why I didn't spend the first two segments just spinning the same ball yarn on this one. The New York Mets are in it. And we'll find out if they're the final winner here of this sweepstakes, or if they end up having to lick their wounds and spend a bunch of money on other guys. I think either way, the Mets are going to have a great offseason. I really do. And the good news is everyone's sort of putting out that this is going to be resolved this week. Now, does that mean it's going to be resolved tomorrow afternoon? Is it going to be right where I've predicted it on this show, where I think it's going to break on Saturday because the winter meetings begin on Sunday? Everyone's going to be showing up in Texas. And then they can do a press conference on Sunday or Monday. Monday is when the winter meetings really are cooking. So I can see sort of the bomb drops on Saturday. That's what I've been saying. Maybe it's Friday. Who knows? Juan Soto is going to take his time here. And he should. At least I think he's going to take his time here. We never know. Today, when all these people were tweeting fake stuff, you started to get that feeling like, oh, is it happening? Is it happening? Is it happening? No, it's not. But if you think about the position he's in right now, multiple $600 million are on the table, according to some reports that are out there. He's getting that contract. He is going to get a contract that breaks the present day value record by Shohei Ohtani, which is somewhere around $460 million. He's going to blow that out of the water. The hard part is done. That's it. He is getting the contract that he's supposed to, right? No doubts about it. He's signing 15 years potentially of his life to an organization. He is, for probably the last time, the only time, picking where he's going to play. He is deciding which team to tie his legacy to. And so if it's the Mets, there's a lot of weight to that. There really is. That's a monumental decision and a monumental win for this franchise to get a player of this caliber to sign. Do you want to see what that can do? Look over to Philly and see what Bryce Harper has done with the Phillies over the last couple of years. If you don't want Juan Soto, I don't know what to say about it, except for the fact that if the Mets sign him, you're going to love him when you actually watch him hit, right? But we just don't know. We don't know what's in Juan Soto's heart right now, what he's thinking, where he's leaning. But here's what I'd say. If he really wants, above all else, to be a Yankee or really wants to be a Red Sox, I think those teams will, to some degree, step up to the plate, bridge the gap enough, and put a contract that is good enough to get Soto to sign. I think he goes to the highest bidder because I think ultimately he will express that's the team he wants to go to. This is the number you have to get to. And that team staring at the possibility of having Juan Soto batting second or third for them for the next decade is just going to end up saying, you know what, let's do it. So we'll see how all the chips fall on this one. Tomorrow's show, haven't done a bullpen outlook yet. It's so tough because relievers are so volatile, but maybe we will look into some relief arms that I like. Or I might talk about Pete Alonso. Those were the two other shows I was kicking around my head with to talk about tonight before I landed on Acuña. Let me know in the comments on YouTube what you want me to talk about. And if you are a Locked On Mets insider or on Subtext, do me a favor and text me some ideas. I'm all about that right now because we're in this sort of waiting period on Soto and everything else in free agency. And so I am all ears for anything you're interested in me breaking down on this show. But regardless, there will be a show every single day for you. I appreciate all of you who continue to tune in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every single day. After your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything, the world of sports. We're talking about Locked On Sports Today with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Locked On Sports Today is streaming 24/7 on YouTube.